Moving on to agenda item 5C, which is at 1150 El Camino Real. It's a request for a conditional use permit to allow a farmer's market per section 1296-190C of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you. The Chamber of Commerce has applied for a use permit to operate a weekly farmer's market in the parking lot at the shops at Tanforan. It's a somewhat unusual application process, so I'd like to give you some background. As you recall, Tanforan is located in a planned development zoning district, which has site-specific requirements. The exact type and location of retail uses are not really specified within that planned development. And so since this is an outdoor sales use that's not specifically permitted in those words in the PD, staff determined that a use permit or temporary use permit would be required. So the first step was bringing it forward to the City Council to confirm that the use is consistent with the overall planned development. The City Council did make this determination on April 24th, and at that time they also requested 2 conditions of approval, which I'll discuss just a little bit later. The next step in the approval process was that we staff reviewed the application as we normally would, routed it to all the reviewing departments, including engineering, fire, and the police department. Then the Community Development Director approved a temporary use permit subject to the conditions from all of those departments, and temporary use permits by the Community Development Director are good for up to 3 months. So the market has been operating every Sunday since May 20th under that temporary use permit. So now the project is before the Commission in order to continue for the remainder of the 2012 season. So now I'd like to turn to some of the details of the market.
Through the chair, can I interrupt 1 second?
Sure.
I'd like to ask a question to staff. Since I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and like I believe Commissioner Johnson is also, is this conflict of interest since we're members of the organization who's the applicant? Yeah. Even though it's a nonprofit, or I just don't know. I just thought of it halfway through her conversation. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Whenever in doubt, I would say yes.
Okay.
I don't have the determination on that, but I mean, if you feel there is one, then you should probably not vote on it.
Okay.
Through the chair, is the conflict of interest when it has a financial gain to your personal?
There's two. I mean, there's when there's a direct financial gain, yes, then there's an obvious conflict, and then there's a conflict of interest that has to do with perception. Does the public think that there could be something that makes you vote a certain way? So that's another thing. It's just the perceived conflict of interest as well.
I think
we
just
should
for
recuse
safe,
ourselves.
I think I'll sit out. I'm going to sit out just to be no sense risking it for the chamber.
Okay, so we'll recuse ourselves.
Okay.
We'll recuse Commissioner Marshall and Commissioner Johnson from this item.
Good call.
Could we close the door behind them as well?
Would you like me to continue? Ready?
I don't know if we should close the door.
As long as they go over and sit on the side, usually.
All right. Please continue.
Okay, so now I'll continue with some of the details about the farmers market. The hours are 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Sundays. As I mentioned, it started on May 20th and is proposed to continue until November 18th. The location is in the parking lot, and you can see it in the Exhibit C to your staff report. It's basically north of the main entrance, so that main entrance that people go into that's across from the crossing. And that's generally in front of Ulta is where the farmers market is held, and it's up against the El Camino Real side. The market is approximately located on 70 parking spaces, and as you can see there in the exhibit, it covers 2 drive aisles. The market area is separated with barriers and cones from the internal driveway and from the adjacent parking area. There's also a pedestrian buffer area that separates the market area from the main drive aisle. So this creates some area for some visibility and improved pedestrian safety as people are moving from the market area to the parking or to the mall area. Also, a Pacific Coast Farmers Market staff member is on site each Sunday. They oversee the circulation and the safety aspects of it and make sure that those pedestrian and circulation measures are effective. because some of them may need to be improved or updated as the market really grows and is successful at that location. It's also worthwhile to note that the market is proposed to end before the holiday shopping season. And as you know, planners and engineers evaluate peak parking in a shopping mall such as this really during the holiday season. And this market will be over before the peak shopping season begins. So we do not anticipate a parking issue that will stretch into the peak season. And I'd like to review a couple of key conditions of approval for the project. First, with condition number 10 and 11, the applicant is responsible for trash, recycling, and all of the cleanup of the site. So it's strictly their obligation to make sure that there's no trash that overflows in the mall or into the public right-of-way. Condition number 30, if there were to be any impacts on traffic or circulation in the future, the community development director or police department could require additional signage to help people in their circulation and getting around the mall and from the street. And conditions of approval number 32 and 33 were the two that were added by the City Council that I mentioned earlier. And basically this includes a new crosswalk in front of the Barnes & Noble and a directional sign to help drivers get to the Target and the JCPenney parking structures. So that's some of the other conditions of approval are fairly standard for any kind of special event or outdoor event that would happen within the community. Since the market started operating on May 20th, we have not received any concerns or questions from any members of the public, from any residents, or from any city departments. So no issues have come up since the market started operating. So staff does recommend approval of these permits subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
First of all, I think it's a good application and a nice staff report. On page 4, however, it refers to peak mall parking requirements. It's spelled P-E-E-K. Is that the right word you were thinking of?
I do not think that that's the right word. I think it's P-E-A-K. I think my grammar's wrong, but I think
okay.
the commissioner might know better than I do.
No, I thought there was something I was missing, possibly. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Condition number 30, does that require the police chief and the director approval, or is it or?
As worded in the condition, it requires both of their approval. Anytime we made a change like this, we would normally refer to both the director and the police chief to make sure it's satisfactory to both.
Okay. When you were giving your report, you said or, so just wanted to clarify. The second item I have is there's a requirement for, let me refer back, 17 and 18. First one requires a ADA parking area of at least 2 van accessible spaces. From the exhibit, it doesn't seem like there's a van accessible ADA space shown on the exhibit. Is this requirement for in the vicinity of, or is there a limit as how far this van accessible space is supposed to be?
You're correct, it's not on the site plan. After the site plan was generated, we talked with the building official about having those 2 van accessible spaces. They need to be in that immediate vicinity. So what we recommended is that they reduce the number of ADA parking spaces and stripe out the van accessible area or otherwise block it out to provide that immediately adjacent.
And I assume the same goes for the ADA bathroom and the sink. It's not shown on the plan, but it will be provided for.
That's correct.
In the vicinity of.
Correct.
The other question I had was there any consideration for this function not being located here, but right next door in the Sears portion of the parking lot, which is less dangerous for pedestrians?
There was. We did discuss it with the applicant, but I would like to defer to them to give a little bit more detail on that.
Sure. Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Is the applicant present? Just take the podium and state your name.
Kirsten Pinocchi, I'm the current president of the chamber.
Great. Could you Speak to the project if you want, if you wish.
Sure. We did request to move the farmer's market to the shops at Tan Fran, and we did that beginning May 20th, and we have had the farmer's market open successfully every Sunday since then. We've gone through all the conditions of the permit with Pacific Coast Farmers Market, and they've adhered to all the permit requirements that we went. Each week we'd visit and we'd make sure that everything was going smoothly, and it has. And it's been well attended, and the vendors are showing up, and they're bringing their fresh products, and the residents and people of San Bruno are enjoying it.
Great. Could you address my first question, which is location?
The Sears question, I'm
Yes.
going to refer that to Tan Fran.
Great.
Good evening. My name is Linda Larson. I'm the general manager at the shops of Tan Fran and representative of ownership. Your questions?
My question was regarding location, as to whether the Sears parking lot was considered, since it has less foot traffic around, or less drivers looking in four different
There are a
directions.
couple of issues. Number one, we don't own that property. It's owned by Sears. So you'd have to approach Sears for that. You're welcome to. I'd be happy to on your behalf, but that wasn't what was requested of me. So put you on our lot.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any members of public who would like to speak? Public comment is now open. Please take the podium. State your name and your, just the street name.
My name is Alan Moy. I'm the Assistant Director of the Pacific Coast Farmers Market Association. We are located at 5060 Commercial Circle in Concord, California. We are partners with the San Bruno Chamber of Commerce and the shops at Tan Fran Mall, and serve as the farmers market operator. Want to take the opportunity to thank the Chamber, the shops at Tan Fran, and the City of San Bruno for your support and the staff support in giving us a temporary use permit and allowing us to open in May. The market has been successful. We have a lot of growing to do. The original application stated the potential for 50 vendors. We have been, over the past several weeks, averaging more 20 to 25. So we know that we have a lot of work to do to really create the market that's of the size and scale and quality that this community deserves, and we're working hard at that. There are two of the conditional use, two of the conditions that I just would like to ask the planning commissions if there's some opportunity for flexibility. That's number 18 and 19. Number 18 of 2 ADA restrooms. We rent portables that are delivered on site, then they are serviced on site and removed. Given the fact that we are at about half capacity currently, we were hoping for the flexibility to have only one restroom with one ADA restroom with an ADA sink available until the market reached the size where there was the demand for a second. That would give us the savings of several $100s a week that we could invest into additional marketing for the farmers market. Secondly, number 19, in terms of the placement of the fire extinguishers, it makes the statement of mounted to a fixed location. As everything that we do is temporary, we put up temporary tents for the day. We would prefer not to affix something to Tan Fran property. They would probably prefer that also. There would also be no way for us to guarantee security since we are only there for 7 hours per week. So we would hope for some flexibility to perhaps have those in a visible location. We set up a farmers market information booth each week. It is our practice that that is where the market manager stores his or her equipment, and that we could have a fire extinguisher available there and visible. And if there was perhaps another place within the market that you felt appropriate, it's just simply the terminology of a fixed location is concerning to us because we were unclear as to how we could effectively implement that on a regular basis. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Commissioner.
I'd like to ask staff, what do you think the fire department was looking for? It looks to me like they're just looking for 3 fire extinguishers around the area in a position that can't readily be changed unless it's purposefully done. Is this something that can be worked out behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think the term fixed doesn't mean affixed to the ground. What I think it means is a consistent location that people know where they're at every single time they're at the market and won't have to search for them if a fire does break out. So what we could do, both 18 and 19 are things that are really at the building official decides the ADA issues and implements ADA, and the fire marshal implements the fire provisions. I think something that we could do there is add, say ADA restrooms shall be present on site to the satisfaction of the building official. And then on the affixed poles, just say to the satisfaction of the fire marshal. That way we could work it out, and I do think that could be reasonable. If there's less booths, then there's a less demand for bathrooms, and that's something that we could work out with the building official.
Okay.
But that's something for the building official to determine.
Thank you very much. Let me ask the representative, does that sound something that would work for you?
Yes, that would give
Okay,
us
thank you.
flexibility. And that would also, the restroom requirement is something that's required of health codes. That also gives us the flexibility if there should be a change in the enforcement by the health department. It also gives us the flexibility to be responsive to them, which we appreciate.
Very good.
We
Thank
have
you.
an appointment with the fire department for 10 a.m. on Thursday, so we can wrap up work with them in terms of the definition of the fire extinguishers at that time.
I think as a practical matter, they're looking for something that the extinguisher can't be just run off with or knocked over easily, and also something that's visible to the people who may want to use it.
Yeah, we appreciate it when our fire extinguishers don't walk away from the market also.
It can happen.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Do you have any
Thank
other
you, Chair.
comments? No comment? All right, thank you. There are no more comments. Public comment is now closed. Yes. Could you take the...
Thank you for letting me speak. I have a couple of questions. Not being the applicant, I have not received the full, all the restrictions and conditions that are put. I've never seen the document. I'm a little alarmed that this evening I'm hearing that number 30 says that if future impacts arise on traffic, the planning director and the police chief may impose additional signage. That's something I should be aware of and be able to assess and discuss with ownership before it is enacted. There are other restrictions or demands that are being put on the shopping center that I need to discuss as well. I believe that there's a demand for directional wayfinding traffic for the J.C. Penney and Target garage structure on the other side of the property. I also believe that there is a demand for a crosswalk at the Barnes & Noble location across to the main entrance. These are large and impactful requests of the property owner. Not having been an applicant, I haven't had the benefit of reading the documents. I haven't been fully apprised of the demands made on ownership, and I need to know them before I can be allowed to let you proceed. I also think I have the right to make some statements as it relates to our desire to have the restrictions on signage and the demand for the crosswalk to be removed.
It's not a portion for public comment, so I'm going to just close public comment for a second, and we'll come back.
And then we can come back to that?
Mhm.
Thank you kindly.
There are no more public comments, then that portion of the meeting is done.
Through the
And
chair,
let's come back for discussion.
I'd like to ask the Tanforan representative to come to the podium and explain those concerns again and what might be a practical solution.
I'm relatively new to the property. I've been here a year and a half. I've had the fortune of working with there on a number of issues and opening the doors to public relations and working with the community, which is something I find very dear to my heart. I'm a former planning commissioner, former chair. Thank you for your service. I know it's difficult. Been there, done that. I'm a former mayor, a two-term council member of the city of Millbrae. I've been in shopping center management for 30 years. The Chamber of Commerce is sometimes considered a competitor or an adversary with a shopping center, when it couldn't be less true. We promote business activities. My marketing director's on the board. We want San Bruno to be successful. And when San Bruno knocks on our door, which is what happened in this situation, we opened it. Well, when we opened it, we let a few things fly in with the friendly, let's help you out presentation that the chamber brought to us. They needed the visibility of our property for the farmers market. No problem. We're thrilled to be hosting it. It's a wonderful community program. Doesn't hurt us a bit. It's on sleepy Sunday mornings. There are no issues. It's a non-issue. It's a joy. Well, before 2009, I believe it was, there were some previous discussions with ownership and the city relative to peak EAK traffic periods and parking ratios relative to the planned development project. I understand these discussions are still ongoing, and some of the issues are yet to be resolved. One of those issues is the wayfinding signage that's being required by the city and were imposed upon the ownership. Totally unrelated to the farmers market. It's an issue 9 years old relative to a separate discussion, which is still ongoing and is in the process of moving forward. That argument should stay with that argument. I don't have the authority to spend money on signage. And I don't know if that's an appropriate request because it's crossing over issues. It's a hangover issue, I guess is the way to put it. As it relates to the crosswalk, I need to go back into my recollections of how this property was developed. It was a planned development. The city was intimately involved in the development of this facility. We're partners. We are symbiotic, and we benefit from each other. This property was designed, developed, approved, constructed, and inspected by every single aspect and department of the city of San Bruno. We've complied with the safety regulations, the ADA regulations. Everything required of that facility was performed to the satisfaction of the city of San Bruno. So to just say, oh, by the way, let's put a crosswalk over there. You are veteran planning directors. You know that you can't just place a crosswalk without understanding its impacts, its costs, how it can be negative to traffic. I mean, there are a plethora of issues that aren't being addressed, and there's just this demand. I can tell you, I went out and had it assessed for cost and feasibility, and if you've been to that intersection, it's not only catawampus from the direct crossroad, but it goes from a sidewalk that would require a truncated dome and ramp set in to an existing concrete curb that is not ADA accessible, and it would require sloping back 16 feet on either side, on the ultra side and the front entrance side, so that you could ramp directly and properly in conformance with ADA to the truncated dome ramp. Then you cross the street, and the stop sign that is there, the stop bar, would have to be moved back about 4 feet because it's too close to the actual exit road itself, and we'd have to make an adjustment for the path of travel. The path of travel would go into a curbed planter that's rather large, has not only a hydrant, but a PG&E vault, stop signs, sprinklers. I'd have to completely renovate that. I'd have to dig it out, put in ramps, put in a pathway that I'm having difficulty understanding could potentially be non-compliant. I don't know if there's a way to actually make that walkway through that planter ADA compliant. It might require an ADA variance. It's not as simple as striping the pavement. It's at least a $10,000 project, all said and done. You're asking a great deal of the host you knocked on the door of to let you in. And I am at a loss for how to assist you in this regard.
Through the chair.
Commissioner.
So I ask you if you had any possible resolutions to this issue that might permit this application to go forward tonight.
Well, I have to state that status quo, again, has been sincerely, formally, and long-term vetted by the city and its various departments, safety departments, police department, planning department, building department, city council, planning commission. This is a project. This is your project. This is the project that the city of San Bruno put in place, and it has been in place successfully for a number of years. People cross at this location and hundreds of other locations at this shopping center, and have for years without a crosswalk.
So what you're saying is that your proposed resolution is to at least temporarily, if not permanently, put the signage and crosswalk provisions aside so that this can go forward at least for now. And then if the city finds it to be of such importance that it has to come back, it can always be brought back.
I have no problem with that, but in the meantime, I'll be putting my ducks in a row as well, because it's also a possibility we could lose a parking stall. I mean, you have to come look at the location, Aaron. We could lose a parking stall. If we lose a parking stall, we're further down the road to negativity on the parking ratio issue. We can't let a stall go, because that has monetary value, not far and beyond the cost of a crosswalk, ADA or otherwise. I would greatly appreciate the greater picture being here, being the Chamber of Commerce and the City of San Bruno, and what they're trying to do with a community event for their citizens, and they need a parking lot, and we have one. It's that simple. If we can go with the flow on that, see how it develops, see if it grows to 50. If you guys want to move it over to Sears, I'll go to Sears myself on your behalf and make a case. And I'll be happy to start that process now. But we don't own that property, so given the time constraints we had, we put
Right.
you on ours.
Yeah, they're not going to make any quick decisions. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other city or
Chair.
commission discussions?
I think those are very valid, excuse me, comments, and I appreciate them very much. Certainly, we want to see it, or at least I would like to see it go forward, and understanding, you know, the implications that could be brought forth, you know, these two items, I fully understand where she's coming from and appreciate it. So those are my further comments until we have a vote.
Before we have a resolution, Aaron, do you have any comments to add on 32 and 33?
Sure. As the general manager pointed out, there's a backstory to this, especially related to the directional signage. And the first thing I like to note is that both of these conditions were placed as a direction of the city council when we had that initial meeting. I'll first touch on the directional signage. Since 2007, the Tan Fran Shopping Center has been operating without the required number of spaces. Several years ago, and this is because of ADA improvements that they had to make to the target level garage that knocked out about 200 parking spaces or so. So it took them down from, they're required to have 4.5 spaces per 1,000. It took them down to a ratio of about 4.3. They started to go through a parking amendment process several years ago. It actually went to the Planning Commission and then was scheduled for the City Council. The direction at both the Planning Commission and the City Council meeting was fine with the lower parking requirement. However, there are highly impacted areas within Tan Fran Mall, and we'd like to see some directional signage to get people to the areas of the mall that have vacant parking spaces. And obviously, if anyone's been to the mall, the most highly impacted are the area outside of BJ's and the area outside of Ulta. And the least impacted areas are the JCPenney's parking deck and the Target garage. Now, I think the City Council and the Planning Commission at that time, this was years ago before a lot of people worked out the way that they drive within the mall, had a more, and staff too, we had the idea of having a more comprehensive parking signage program to direct people to various areas of the mall. What the City Council directed at this last one is simply one sign. This sign would, as you make a right out of the main entrance and you're headed south in the parking lot past BJ's. It would simply have a sign that points people. There's additional parking in the Target garage as well as the J.C. Penney's garage, so it's not a huge deal in terms of the number of signs. The reason this is placed on this is because we have a situation where you're taking up parking spaces and you're already below what the legal, even though there may not be demand, still what the legal parking requirement is for this zone. So that is the reason behind this and why this condition is placed there. Well, the general manager is correct. Even if the farmers market weren't going to happen, this would be a requirement that's placed on this when we eventually do call up the parking exception application for final approval to the city council meeting, which will happen within the next 3 months or so. So this is something that's going to be on this. This will be a requirement, regardless of the farmers market or no farmers market. However, since this is taking up additional parking spaces, we had to place it within these conditions of approval. Regarding the crosswalk, the reason why the crosswalk requirement is here is simply I believe the council member as well as staff noticed that this would draw extra pedestrian activity to a certain area. That said, we're not dead set on the crosswalk. I think what we could do is, even though that was the city council's direction and they may end up requiring that, what we're happy to do is sit down with Tanfran as well as our engineering staff to see if there is another way that we could work around, the way that pedestrians get around the mall in this certain area. So what I'd be happy to add there is, or recommend adding there is, a crosswalk or additional pedestrian measure to the satisfaction of the city engineer.
But you're still, I'm sorry, through the chair?
Yes.
But you're still set on the, on number
32.
30 with the additional signage,
Correct.
which we're talking about one sign.
Correct. And this
And
was
the
strong.
gentleman-
This was strong direction for years now, and it's strong direction from the city council at the city council meeting where this was heard, and the city council was making the determination whether or not a use like this was consistent with the mall zoning, and their determination was part of the mall zoning is a parking requirement. Their parking requirement isn't being met at this point. So in order for there to be consistency, directional signage should be put in, pointing people towards the least impacted areas of the mall.
Okay, so, but the general manager of the mall has stated that she was not in receipt of, I guess, the whole entire packet with all of the conditions of approval. That was what I understood, correct? So, I don't really know why not. To me, it doesn't kind of make sense, but it is what it is. She didn't get it, she didn't get it, and it's not good to have to come to a meeting and have something,
Correct.
all of a sudden you're looking at a cost, because it could very well be a cost.
These specific areas, though, have been discussed before. We sent an email with the specific locations circled showing what the conditions. We did the error, though, in the fact that we should have sent the final packet to the property owner as well.
Okay.
And they may have been sent to the property owner and not to the general manager.
Entirely possible. Is there some way that even tonight, if we wanted to, in the event that, as it stands right now, let us say that it was, voted down, or let's say that it's voted in, but it doesn't meet with, the mall, what their requirements are. I mean, is there some way to, for a month, continue for the, farmer's market until these issues could be resolved? I mean, or is it end here tonight where it's either gonna be, next Sunday, it's not gonna have a farmer's market, or,
No,
You know what I'm saying?
they actually have an approval for 3 months beginning May 20th with the temporary use permit. So they actually there's a little bit of buffer time in there. We wouldn't yank the temporary use permit. It would just be something that beyond August 20th wouldn't be allowed to operate.
so in reality, we have basically until the beginning of August,
Correct.
really, to try and
Correct.
get this resolved. Okay.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
I'm a little confused. How did the permission for the shopping center to come into existence the way it is now, get approved, and yet have parking loose and undefined?
The idea was that we were going to do it as a temporary use permit for a short period of time and see how things worked out, and then address the long-standing parking issues as part of the use permit that goes forward for the rest of the year, as well as the parking exception application that would ultimately go to the city council. So the idea was we didn't want to delay the start of the farmers market. We'd let it operate as it is right now, and then for the long-standing one, we'd place the conditions of approval in it.
Oh, that's not what I meant. I think that's good that the farmers market is going on. But it's my understanding there's still parking negotiation going on between the city and the ownership of the mall, independent of the farmers market. Is that correct?
Correct. I think we're all in agreement that a lower parking requirement can be justified for the site. It's just really the condition of approval related to directional signage is the only thing that's under negotiation.
So that's why my spirit is feeling so beat up.
Yeah. I mean, the other option would be that that you continue this item till the July meeting. There would still be additional time there, and that we work with the mall management in the meantime over those two conditions.
I'd like to make a motion.
Before you do, Perry, I have a couple of questions.
Okay. First, I'd like to say that I listened carefully to what you were saying before, and one of the excerpts of that was, even though there may not be demand. I've been out there in slow times and busy times, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and right now for that matter, and I've never had any trouble finding parking. I might have to walk a little bit, but there's miraculous number of open spaces even on the most busy Christmas shopping day. So I'm having trouble with having to have more parking there. The signage I could see. On the other hand, if I were a betting person, I might bet that 90% of the people who come to that mall know where the parking is. They just don't want to walk from the corner of the penny slot or the Target garage. But there's parking there, and I think they know it. So I'm a little suspicious of how tremendously important more signs are. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
Could I ask the property manager to step up here for a second? Yeah, please. Could you show me which portion of the lot belongs to Sears?
Building line,
All the way out to the street.
second garage, and then shop and here, same thing. all the way back. So we own
Is that this? Gotcha.
maybe 2 lanes of traffic.
I was just going to
Okay.
offer
Okay,
this
thank you.
map. Is this map any better?
No, this is actually a wider map of the
Oh,
entire
okay.
parking lot.
If you were to look at the JCPenney building and the Sears building and take their interior walls as they attach themselves to the main structure of the smaller shops, that's the property line across the back generally.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank
So, in years past, I've seen like pumpkin patches and stuff in the parking lot. So those would have been, they were done in that Sears section of the parking lot apparently, right?
There are 2 lanes of traffic, see that line?
Yeah,
We have
there's-
2 lanes of traffic here that belong to us. This area here
It's
has
Sears.
been utilized for carnivals.
Right.
You name it, it's been out there. That's been going on for years. That's just a function of specialty leasing as a temporary use permit for the city. We haven't had them.
But
submit
it's
their-
Sears property
That's
though, right?
Sears property. There's
Okay.
reciprocal easement agreements as it relates to the traffic and promotions. So that's
Would this fall into that?
This, I consider the farmer's market an event. Do I need to be on speaker?
Yeah, that'd be good. Because my thought is, that portion of the parking lot's been used for this type of activity before. It's not ideally located. I mean, in a retail sense, what you've picked out is ideal for congesting people in a retail environment where they can go shopping, they go to the, farmer's market. But we've had that kind of usage on that property before. It's a lot less traffic, there's a lot less vehicle flow, there's more parking over there.
I would be happy to approach Sears. I would be happy to approach JCPenney's, but that will take time, and we didn't
course.
have the luxury of time when this was first presented to us.
Okay.
So we did the best thing, and we put you on our property, and here we sit. This particular project has some specific differences as it relates to other functions that have occurred on these sites. The carnivals, the pumpkin patches, the Christmas tree lot, other proposed uses which shall remain nameless for the time being. But those are tenants. They're paying us rent. We get money. We get commissions. We don't get anything for farmers market.
Okay.
We get the pleasure of being the host, which we enjoy. But we're not making money off this. This is not sales that we generate income from.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, through the chair.
Commissioner?
In an indirect way, though, you may be making money off of it by virtue of the more people that attend the farmer's market. Hopefully, they will then in turn get their goods and then decide, hey, I need a T-shirt or whatever, right? And go to one of the stores. So there is that indirect, hard to put a figure on. Hopefully, you're making some money off of the farmer's market. Maybe not. It might be very difficult to trace, but probably in all, more than likely, there is a trickle-down theory in effect there, I would think.
You're in a
Excuse me.
regional
Excuse me.
shopping center parking
Excuse
lot.
me. Well, 1 second. Did you want a response to that, or was that a
No,
statement?
no,
Oh, you don't?
Okay.
no. She could if she wants.
Well, there's two things. Yes, it is a regional shopping center. It is what it is. It exists, therefore it is. That's its function. However, the parking lot, the hours of the farmer's market right now only has a 2-hour overlay on Sunday. So, I mean, it's not like we're open the whole time that the farmer's market is there.
Okay. I'd like to bring this discussion to a closure. Is there a motion to go forward, or is there a motion
Through
to
the
continue?
chair. I'd like to move on the basis of what I hear here. I think that it would benefit the motion moving forward in a more permanent way if it were continued. So I move that the commission continue use permit 12-6 to the next planning commission meeting.
Any second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Seeing none, item is continued to the next planning commission meeting on July, was it 17th? Yep.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
So that does mean that the farmer's market will be able to continue
Right.
as they're currently operating.
That is correct.
Correct.
At
They're
least
good.
through
They're
that.
good through the mid-August.
That is correct.